Welcome to We Are VR.
Whoa!
Very muted, not enough tequila in the house, I don't think. Not yet. Welcome. My name's Dale Deacon. Everyone calls me Deek. One of the founding members of We Are VR. And We Are VR. You know, it's not always just one person. It's not this person or that person. It's like all of us doing the same thing in our little silos, and then we come together once a month, and then we share. You know, what have we learned? What worked? What didn't work? So, thanks for coming through. Before we get started, I want to find out. I like to do this every time. I want to find out who's the artist here. Who considers themselves an artist or a designer? Who is an artsy person? Put your hand up, please. Up high. Be proud. All right, cool, nice. Hands down. Hands up. What? No. Who's a coder? Who's a developer? An engineer? Yes. Yeah. There's my devs in the back. Very nice. All right. What else? Like business people, like business development, entrepreneurs. Yeah. Got a bunch. Nice. What am I missing? Marketing in the house. Yeah. What else? Finance, bankers. This is Joburg, right? So like, it's got to be some. Do we have any lawyers in the house? Do we have any lawyers? Yes, I see a lawyer in the back. Conservationists in the house. Yeah. Nice. All right, cool. Anybody I missed? Academics? Production. Nice. What did I miss? Academics. All right, cool. All right, so like, if you've been to one of these before, it's the same old format. Every time we do a little welcome, say hi. We're gonna hand over to Deliso for the news. Then we two amazing guest speakers tonight. We got the open session, the open mic, where everybody can sort of share their thoughts and their projects, and then we just hang out, have a good time, hopefully send some shots flying. So, yeah, welcome's pretty much done. So let me give you just a super brief context about what We Are VR is, right? We started out and we decided we wanted to make the XR capital of Africa, right? So XR being VR and AR, and then also virtual reality and augmented reality, and then we try like everything in the middle. There's so many like crossovers. It's just, you know, immersive technology, experiential technology, you know, the stuff that's not on a flat screen. That's what we're trying to do. And we set out to create the XR capital of Africa, and I think, I mean, I'm sure people would fight me about it, but like, I think we're already there. So the new goal now is to be like an XR hub of the world. And I think we're already, you know, working towards that, and already, you know, people around the world talk about Joburg as this like interesting place where things are popping off in XR. And it's true, and it's because of you guys. So congrats on that, and well done. Keep it up. We started this whole thing, this is an old slide, it was like more like 7 years ago, down at the Tomorrow Gallery downstairs. So we stayed in the same building the whole time, although we do collaborations with like Fabugezi Festival and Afro Geek, and like, you know, so we're open to collaborating. We like other cool people who are doing cool things. So yeah, this is us. We've been around for a while. We've been around for a minute. The gray hairs attest to that. Just a couple of cool shots that we have. You'll see on the new website, there's like hundreds of photos, thousands maybe, of photos of all the events that we've had. And you can see in the middle of there's old space where we went like VR during COVID, and like we got Ruan from Free Lives at the top there. We did Corn. We had so many amazing people come through. So thank you again for just, you know, contributing to this like project that we've been working on. This like anarchist movement of like coming together and just sharing things without any like formal structure or anything. But thank you. So just so that we're all on the same page, we like to talk about augmented reality with like smart glasses, where things are projected into the real world. With like Pokemon Go is a good example, and that's what we talk about with augmented reality. We bring like virtual things into the real world. And then on the other hand, everybody knows what virtual reality is. It's like plunging yourself into the metaverse. It's this crazy psychedelic, like going into a place. And there's a lot of stuff in the middle. You know, Apple calls it spatial computing. You know,
immersive computing.
Yeah. You know, we've got a serious problem with jargon on our hands here in this industry. But like, essentially, this is what we're talking about: is that spectrum of like meshing the real world and the virtual world. So before we get onto speakers, I updated the slides a second ago. But before we get onto the speakers, we're going to hand over to our host, our MC, Deliso.
Okay.
He's going to be chatting about the news, and then we'll take it from there. So thank you for Deliso.
All right, no problem. Sorry.
There we go.
Okay, can everybody see me? Is that better?
Is it still?
Yeah.
Yeah, 1 sec. There we go.
Okay. Camera automatically pans down.
Okay. Welcome everybody. I've been the host of VR VR for quite a few years during the online times or offline times, but I just want to request for everybody to just give me a whoop whoop. Can I hear whoop whoop? Can I hear whoop whoop? Can I hear a real whoop whoop? Yeah, so the first line item is that Meta's taking a whooping in the VR space. The funny thing is that they're actually pivoting more towards smart glasses. So I think if you guys can see what I'm actually wearing is actually the Meta Ray-Ban displays. Yeah, so looking into the future, as we can already see. The funny thing is that we've actually seen quite a huge move in the space, because with Meta AI, one would think that it's the gimmick that's fine, you can take a picture, it'll tell you what exactly is in front of you and the likes. But we've actually seen a huge shift to the blind community, where in front of them, they can actually take a photo, ask what it is, and it can be hands-free. So if anybody knows about the volunteer app, Be My Eyes, it also works where, for example, you can call a volunteer to describe what is in front of you. But now you can actually do that with the glasses, where you can say, hey Meta, be my eyes, I know it's actually gonna hear me, and it'll actually be able to do that. And then of course, I think if you've seen on my wrist, I've got like 2 devices. I've got a smartwatch and then I've got the neural wristband. So what can actually happen is that I can interact with the glasses without actually having to press any buttons in one form or another. So I think that's just it, because I think even when I was speaking to Dale, with Meta, they recently laid off 1,500 in the VR department. So that already attests to quite a large demographic that we're actually having to see a shift in the tides as to how things go. And then I think everybody knows Snapchat. Does anybody have a Snapchat account? Can you put your hands up? Wow. So it's quite popular around the world. Funny enough, they were the ones who actually pioneered smart glasses. They were called spectacles. Then they renamed their company to Snap. And then they spun out their spectacle division to be called Specs. So it seems like, for example, Meta and the likes, they all seem to be naming each other in a variety of ways. But it seems quite interesting as to where things are actually going into the space. And then for anybody who's an OG, I presume some of the guys here at the back, if they know Nrail. Does anybody remember Nrail? Yeah, now they're called X-Rail because of a trademark dispute. So with them, they're also smart glasses. Before, you could only just see 2D images, so pretty much think of flat panels. But now they've actually been able to push out an update where you can see 2D as 3D. So anybody who's actually seeing the Apple Vision Pro, they've actually even added that feature. I think you've even seen it on your iPhones and the likes, where now you've got that 3D kind of Gaussian splat approach. And then let's welcome back Google. The guys who were in VR then necessarily had a device, then left the market and left it to Meta and nobody else. Of course, we've got HTC, of course, we've got Pico. Pico also got acquired by the guys who own TikTok, if you know about that. But yeah, a good round of applause that Android is actually getting back into the game.
Yes!
Especially with the Samsung Galaxy XR. So it's like an in-between, still quite costly, but at least it's actually getting us the praise that is there. And then, of course, I think for anybody who knows about CES, the Consumer Electronics Show, it seems like it's now the age of the wearables. No longer the fact that everything's just being put into one device, but now it's just being split into multiple devices. So wearing glasses, bands, trackers, and all this other stuff. So it's going to be quite an interesting decade ahead in that regard. So yeah, I can just say in one sentence, the industry hasn't abandoned immersive tech. It's abandoning headsets, first thinking, in favor of glasses, platforms, and software-led immersion. So yeah, that's pretty much it. Thank you so much, everybody. And we're handing it back to Dale.
Thanks, Papa D. Thank you very much, sir. All right, so we have 2 amazing guests for you today who are going to be sharing their work, sharing their experiences, sharing their knowledge. So without further ado, I'm going to have to switch this over to a different tab. But in the meantime, Y'all can welcome Karine from Habitat.
Yay, Okay, cool. Hi everyone, my name is Karine. I am what we call a cinematic VR artisan. So we kind of coined a different name for ourselves because we kind of realized we do a lot more than what most editors do. So just calling us a VR editor is not saying anything. Between stitching, comping, removing, doing spatial audio, we kind of do everything. So yeah, it became a new word for us, and especially with the word artisan, because yeah, it became a bigger conversation of what we actually do with our footage, and the word just kind of stuck, and we hoping to make it a bigger word in the industry and have more people join. In the last year, we kind of grew in Habitat, and we're now 4 cinematic VR artisans that dive into this world. But before I get there, it's just thank you, Erika, for giving me the chance to be a VR artisan. So he's my boss, and hey. But just to kind of walk through my experience for what I usually do. So my main point of work is stereoscopic VR, and unfortunately you can't really see, but there's a whale right there. So we do a lot of NGO and nature conservation VR experiences to kind of get the word out there about what nature really should mean for people, getting them immersed and hopefully changing their hearts and minds about nature and getting them a little bit closer to loving and changing their ways so we can save nature for the future. So I've worked on quite a few underwater VR experience. I realized while putting these slides together, we have an underwater experience in kelp. We have one that has whale sharks with a lot of cool people. Meditative moments with mantis, where we shot in Mexico and Mozambique. And then of course we have a Bazaruto original, which we kind of use to help kids that only live on the coast actually experience what happens underwater. Now this is purely 3D underwater, so it was us removing the pole, removing the diver. So a lot went into kind of cleaning the shots and getting them to be really, really immersive without having a person swimming behind you. So if you turn your head and headset, there's a random person holding something behind you. Then the other experiences is basically we did an entire series for Meta when they were still so much in VR. It was called Nature in Motion, which played actually in Horizon venues. It was 45 minutes long, so a lot of work went into getting the VR ready for those experiences. And of course, it was centered around nature. But then basically, I just wanted to show what I do for a living. Shout out to Rico, that's in my footage and in my thing. It's making him disappear as much as I can. And then, oh, don't have access to this video file, that's okay. It was just a time lapse of me cleaning a tripod out of the footage, so it's very entertaining. So basically cleaning tripods, taking out people, and just making it all look cool. Also, did I mention this video? Is that okay? But yeah, I basically work in 3D all the time, so being very comfortable with the anaglyphic glasses is always amazing because we work in 3D, and that just is so cool that I can say that. But the cool projects that I have done is we did the first super panoramic theater in the world, and it lives at the Fosse campus in Rwanda. So a bit of knowledge on this theater: it is a big room with a big theater that's 360, and it is 24K capable in terms of its resolution. So we went from VR, so shooting gorillas in the wild, and then putting it on a very tiny screen that is 16:1 in its aspect ratio. So it was kind of reconforming what VR could be in different spaces. So the idea was to put it in a room with all its little, here is a door because we had to have a safety door, here's the speakers. So working around that and orientating the footage and kind of building the footage to work very well. So just some images. It was kind of funded by Ellen DeGeneres Fund. So it was quite cool to work on something that's quite futuristic. The footage that we worked with was upscaled for the first time with Topaz. I don't know if anyone knows about that, but we got to 16K in our footage. So we were kind of pushing the bar on what media servers could do and actual video. We got there, we put the footage on, I had 24K, and the machine was like, no, we can't do that. We contacted the codec people, we contacted everything, and they're like, yeah, we can't go over 16, no one's really done that, why? So we were kind of stuck at 16 because it doesn't really happen in the world. But ultimately we had to kind of rearrange VR footage, shrink it down to make gorillas fit in. Did a lot of painting and a lot of duplicating and a lot of freeze framing to make it work. But ultimately at the end we had a very long, thin video. So I did bring some stills if you guys can actually see them from the final video. So yeah, that was an experience and a half. Got to go to Rwanda, figure out the system that was there, because we built everything from scratch. So it was quite a lot to even figure out the aspect ratio once you've actually built the whole thing and figuring out how the footage needs to work. And then last year we did our first dome project, which is the opposite of the super panoramic, where we had to go from a thin line to a full dome. And basically we worked on Kwasikwasikela, which was a actual experience created by Inca with AI, and a lot of images, and it's a beautiful poetic story, but it was built for a room. It was built for a specific size where people kind of have to interact with the size and just feel a lot closer to the story. And we were tasked to make it a dome. So first I was like, oh, it's a flat thing. That kind of works like we did the reverse of the theater. Unfortunately, that caused the donut. There was holes, quite a lot of holes, and we had to kind of work our way back from that point to fill these spaces. So my fellow artisan Kelly and I put it back into After Effects and basically put 2D objects into VR to bend correctly. So when we do the converter, it bended correctly into this sphere. So yeah, we were just figuring out, let's go to VR because that's what we know, and then go back into dome. I wanted to show you guys a shot of our After Effects file. It kept crashing today, so thank you After Effects, unfortunately. But at the end of the day, we had nice dome projected elements. We did go through a whole stage of seeing where we could push the bits dome in terms of its bit rate. Did break it a little bit with too much of a high bit rate, but we figured it out and it's working, so always go above and beyond when we want to. But yeah, that's me.
Thank you so much, Corinne. That's been amazing. Please, let us know how we can watch this for ourselves in the dome. We need to check this stuff out. Yeah, it's
Once a month, as Bitstorm is actually showing. Yeah.
Oh.
Okay.
Thank you. That's awesome.
Do you want to do a Q&A?
Right now?
Yeah.
Okay.
Any questions? Who's got questions?
The Bitstorm, they're actually showing this every month, if I'm not mistaken. Yes.
Okay.
So it's an experience with Kwasikwasikela, and then 4 Habitat original films has been converted to dome.
Do you want to come up?
Yeah. I know my voice is loud, but yeah.
Can you take us through, for the geeks in the room, a little bit more of the technicalities around taking a 2D image and putting it into a dome sphere? Is there a universal dome shape that we should all kind of know? And if we're shooting for dome, is there a way that we can shoot more productively?
So shooting for dome from a VR standpoint is a lot easier. All you have to know is basically if you stitch your footage together is how to place it in the dome. So if you want to have the top layer of your footage like normal VR, it will fit in because you're just cutting out the top. What we actually did is in After Effects is called VR Converter. You can tilt the actual thing downwards. So in this case, with the elephant, that was normal VR footage that once you put it through the VR converter, it takes it back to basically your raw footage. So before you stitch it out, so it's before basically the making it weird in VR spec, basically. So you're taking it back to this. So when shooting VR, it's kind of very specific on where on the horizon your footage is. Unfortunately, we had quite a few things that were lower on the horizon, so we had to tilt it more in the dome, which starts making it weird because you're looking at a pangolin that's up here and quite big. So it's just making sure what you want. The other option is you can actually lift the entire horizon up and squeeze the top. So you have your entire horizon line on the horizon of the dome, like we did with Casa Pasakela. We didn't do that because it just feels a little bit awkward, like you're missing a few things at the back. So we opted for the tilted look in the dome.
Could you speak a little bit about the process of removing the diver out of your 360 image? That must have been quite, I can't even imagine.
In this image, actually the whale image, going through all my animations. You're not going to see it as much in this image because it's quite dark, but so in this case, our diver has about a 3-meter pole that's attached to the mantis housing that has the Pro 2. So our first stage would be Mystica to actually edge point out to the pole, which does cause quite a stereo discrepancy at the bottom, which then we go into Final Cut and we clean as much as we can, but then it is left with the diver in the back just holding this random thing swimming behind you. So in this case, which was quite lucky for us, there's nothing quite around like a reef, so we can literally just copy and paste side by side or flip it and yeah, basically paint it out, but it moves with the footage. There is some instances where we can't remove the diver, like he's swimming through coral or there's like fish coming around. We have been looking into AI, we haven't been looking into DaVinci replacing frames. Nothing works yet, so everything is quite manual still, but the hope is one day AI can analyze the footage and just replace the diver with water, even if it's just blue. Some of the footage, like the Manta one that I did, we were on a very quite tight budget, so I just made blue and blurred it in hopes that no one will realize it. So there's tricks, but yeah.
Anybody else with questions?
Can you just say, sorry? Can you just say one more time how we can view this and if it's like?
Yeah, the bits. I think there's stickers on sale every month. I'm not exactly sure when it is. Yeah.
I think what was there a question?
I know someone else did it. I was about to ask what AI did you use?
Yeah, the AI we're still working out. At the moment, we're testing Comfy UI. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah.
How do you test these things? Do you have to be in the dome and the theater to see it properly for the first time?
Yeah. So the dome, we definitely did tests where we predicted what it would look like. I made different versions, and then we actually went to the dome. We told them, hey, can we play these few videos so we can just actually see how it looks? Because the one thing we didn't know was the viewing angle where the people will actually be able to see and how comfortable it is. And one of the things is one of our films has a helicopter that moves, and we had no idea how people will actually feel if the dome moves around you. So we had to do multiple tests with the dome to kind of figure that out. Similar to the Farsi Theatre, we actually went there. I was part of the, technically the post team that went to the theatre in Rwanda and sat in a dark place for like 3 or 4 days just working on the footage and figuring out where the placement needed to be. So it is better to work on the theatre like itself, mainly for one reason, it's projectors. So color doesn't match, sizing doesn't match, all those things. We actually had to come back to South Africa with the theatre not completely done, but we built a mini studio, a mini theatre in my office, which was 1/9 of the total theatre. So I had to work in sections with the one projector that would match with the stuff in Farsi, so we can get the color and the actual pixel density correct.
Okay. Cool. All right.
Awesome.
Well.
far right. Yeah. There you go.
So.
It should be, I think.
All right, thank you very much, Karine. Next up, we have Isak Poktita, recent PhD. What are you going to tell us all about? Yeah, yes. Thank you very much, Isak.
Yes.
Okay, how's it everyone? How are you? I'm Dr. Isak Poktita. Don't let the doctor fool you. I am literally, it just means for the last 4 years I was not seeing the sunlight, trying to understand how XR can apply to cultural heritage in our context without being a gimmick. So I hope I figured something out in that time, and I'd like to share what we have been up to. Okay, so a little bit about me quickly. I actually studied as an architect, did my master's in architecture, worked as an urbanist in the CBD for a while. Then I went into video games for a bit to learn how to code. Worked with UJ for a while, at different UJ labs, XR labs, the Fab Lab, the Calcium Lab, the Metaverse Research Unit. And eventually that led to a PhD, and now I'm here. Okay, so that's kind of the journey into this and how cultural heritage and XR came together. So I'd like to speak about my company, Glassbox 3D, and what we can offer. So crucially, firstly, we are quite adamant and uncompromising about always working with the museums or the institutions or tribal authorities, whoever is identified as the custodians of the heritage in question, that whatever IP we gather actually gets housed there and gets controlled by that. I think that's a crucial platform after which you cannot do anything if that's not put in place. So that's quite foundational to us. And then I'd like to just quickly go through some of the projects we've been up to and some of the offerings that we've been able to put together, starting with augmented reality. So this is a project we did in 2019 already, which is an AR experience of architecture. We did this for architecture students specifically to be able to visualize buildings during COVID because they couldn't actually visit construction sites. So you get you scan the QR code of your phone, which is on the screen, and you can see the buildings step by step being created and explaining what's actually happening. But what's interesting about this technology, we're currently doing a project at the Melbourne Copies. We're applying this. There's a 500-year-old Botswana forge there, which we're in AR going to reconstruct, along with animations explaining how it actually worked as a visitor's offering. So you'll have QR codes there. This should be in place by the end of April, if nothing goes wrong. So it's moving. In various indigenous languages, we're able to scan and actually see this heritage come to life and accurately, not just display technically how it worked, but also the stories and cultural meaning behind it as gathered from the people who are actually aware of that. So there's always fieldwork. There's always a lot of fieldwork, and that's crucial. This is what we hope to do in the phase 2 at the multiple copies. There were Botswana settlements there, quite a few. Nobody knows about them, but they existed, and with LiDAR scans, you can actually see the outlines of them with ground-penetrating LiDAR. So the second phase, you could actually get a QR code and see what they actually look like based on reconstructions of Botswana villages in other parts of the country. We'll see if that happens, but it's an interesting application nonetheless, using AR to write back in heritage which has been physically erased. And then there's this AR for archiving, which is still novel, I suppose, but I think it's a relatively well-established method at this point, where you simply scan an artifact, and instead of taking high-quality images as part of the archiving exercise, you actually have the 3D objects. So what's interesting about that, you get the exact dimensions, you get the materiality, and the current state of the object. And you can even take that object now and restore it digitally if you want to see what it looked like before it reached the state, or degrade it further to see what it might look like in the future. So there's a lot of applications with that as well. And you can simply send a link to someone. They can open it up on their phone, display it in the real world to have a look at it, blow it up to look at the details, or just look at it on your phone, scrolling, like a little 3D object. I'm not going to say Pokemon Go. I know this crowd knows what I'm talking about. But those are the kind of AR applications we've identified. Then virtual reality, which is where I got my start. Been playing with virtual reality for a while now, ever since the Quest 1. So I think 2 real applications stood out. First is work that we've been doing in s5e1 for the Trevor Huddleston Memorial Center, also since 2019, trying to reconstruct what this place looked like before it was physically lost in the 1950s. And because there's not a lot of video, there's not a lot of imagery, we worked a lot with direct interviews and ethnography of people who actually remembered the place. What was this place like, the Odin Cinema, for example? We have the only full model of what the Odin Cinema actually used to look like. And that comes from stitching together images as much as we can, and then taking the gaps to former residents and saying, what do you remember of these gaps? Filling that in, going back, is this correct? And it got to the detail of them telling us, oh no, the Odin had a double neon sign, not a single neon sign. The movie posters were always on the left, not the right. It's incredible what people can remember. You know, we remember very spatially at the end of the day. And in lieu of images, videos, how can you still represent places which still exist in memory? So that was what the whole PhD was about, translating memory into a representation that the person who remembers the space will recognize as being true to the fact. So that's an interesting application. And it doesn't even have to be in virtual reality necessarily. So the idea is to have a VR station at the museum, but we're also looking at a proposal to have little AR plinths in Sapphire Town, which you can scan, and with your phone, much like this, see, oh, that's what it actually used to look like. There's a little park there, you could scan and see the Odin Cinema and walk inside, walk through the stages, maybe at different points of sound coming. It's an interesting way to write in spaces which have been physically lost, but it doesn't mean it's lost just because it's physically lost. There are still ways to represent these places in a way that's meaningful and accurate. And then VR for Living Heritage. This is a project we worked on quite a while back, which is why it maybe looks a bit dated, with the Calstein Lab. And this was documenting the process of creating traditional Mkomboti beer in KwaZulu. So we went to a village and we worked with a local institution who got funding for this to document the exact process, not just the process of making the beer traditionally, but also having a Mkomboti beer drinking ceremony afterwards. So it's not just about the material reproduction, it's also about the cultural meaning behind it. That's always important to document both, because you can document the making of something, but the use, what it is actually intended for, is something that's often missed, I think, and crucial. And this is another project we did with the Sun Council. We went to a Khoisan village, did a lot of interviews there. This, and I always try to do my own field work because it informs the development of the project, you know, and you, as a developer, understand what kind of questions you need to ask to get a certain result. Although usually I try to ask as few questions as possible. You know, you work with what you get, which is always interesting. But this, we went to a sun village, and the brief was to find sun myths around the night sky and the moon. Okay, so we did interviews on that, found different stories, and with co-creation created these rock art glyphs, also telling the story simultaneously in VR, and then mixed that in with the CAPS curriculum. So in grade 7, you learn a little bit about the moon and astronomy. Then we created this simulation and went back to the small town, to the primary school that actually showed this project off. There was not a single child that actually knew any of these stories, which is really interesting. So the place where these stories came from, the children there did not recognize any of them. Even though it was verified by the Sun Council and so on as being true, it's not something that's being disseminated at all. And retention of knowledge was much higher in our study, much higher, because if a child learns, I'm butchering this, this isn't the exact story, but it's just an example. If the child learns the rabbit chases the moon and eats a bit each night, and then he sleeps because he's full, and then the moon grows back, and you just sneak in by 10 degrees every night, you just sneak in the science. Kids remember that much better than a little bit of math on a textbook. So working with indigenous knowledge to teaching through indigenous knowledge, rather than teaching indigenous knowledge as like something on the side. That is also an application that we found to be very effective. And then finally, artificial intelligence. And it's been interesting to work on this because a lot of this work started before AI became a thing, and then all of a sudden, things which took hours and hours of manual labor became instant and just opened a bunch of doors. I don't have to play that story over and over. We've all been dealing with this. But one thing that has been interesting is AI trained on oral history. So we understand AI is as good as the data it gets. And if you go into ChatGPT for Sophiathon, for example, you get a few very cliched images, and that's about it. Okay. So we actually took the multiple hours of interviews we had with former residents of Sophiatown, which is the IP of the Trevor Huddleston Center. So it's always been housed in an institute that they trust and that they know will be of benefit to their area that they're interested in, Sophiatown in this case. And we're currently working on a proposal with Fakukesi to produce virtual agents. So you could have an AI trained on these different responses of people just recalling what life was like in Sophiatown. And the process we've kind of been putting together with that is each line of text gets a who is speaking, where, what is this place being spoken of, and what is the event. So you could go and ask, tell me about weddings at the Odeon Cinema, but I want to hear it from a woman's perspective. And it could get that for you, and even have the person speak to you directly, like call that actual person out, anonymized of course, and because we shot them with a green screen to have their likeness. And you can actually have a conversation and engage with history on that level, which is a first-person recollection of what history was. And this has just become possible all of a sudden, which is quite crazy to me as well. So that's the kind of thing that we've been playing around with. This is what the code looks like. We had like 8 hours of interviews, and we hope to do even more. The more data you have, of course, the better your model. But by just applying a who, what, and where to each line, AI is able to generate these natural conversations. And you can even have translation in that mid-conversation, because we made sure that people could speak Afrikaans or English also, or Tsotsitaal, and just mix it in. People are much more comfortable speaking that way. And the AI can just play that game along with you. So, yeah. This is what I figured out while in the woodwork for the last 4 years, and I hope there's some application for these technologies. And with that, let's connect, and I'm open to some questions. Yeah. Yes.
Yeah, I find it really interesting your kind of historical connection with using the LiDAR to find the exact space for your hut. Versus your Odin movie, which is like, we can actually take from verbal cues of people that were actually there. So I'm interested as to what your guidelines and parameters are in terms of establishing something that's either from a perspective-driven location or from an actual historical.
So I developed a hierarchy I work with. You start with what you know was absolutely sure. In Sophiatown, the plots, they didn't change. So I know exactly where the Odin was located, for example, from historical images. But I don't know what the interior looked like necessarily. So then you move to ethnographic data. And if you get none of that, then you move to looking at similar buildings in Joburg built in a similar time. So there's a step-by-step process to make sure that it's as accurate as possible. And it's important that remains open to scrutiny. So we've had people come to the museum and say, oh, no, that's not right. That's not what it was like. That used to be over there. That used to be over there. But that would never have been prompted if we didn't get a model going to start with. So they become these little living recollections of people's memories. And if you get enough people's recollections in, because everyone remembers a little bit differently, that's just the nature of memory, there's slippage. But if you get enough in, it kind of settles on the fact of what it actually might have been like, becoming more and more plausible. So for that, we work with what we absolutely knew was certain, and then down to less and less and less certain.
Question?
Yes.
I know you used Unreal for a lot of your VR, well, some of your VR stuff in the past. Do you use Unreal for your AR stuff as well?
No. I use Unity with Euphoria or AR. I just have not found Unreal's AR tools to be that up to scratch yet. I've not found it to be that up to scratch yet. Maybe I'm not, but that's been my luck. Yeah.
Anybody else?
Knowing that the Apple Vision is now a possibility, is it something you would pitch to actually bring your apps to life with the Apple Vision with its better quality?
I think so. It's always an idea. I'm always a little bit wary of Hollywoodizing. Is that a coined word? You know what I'm trying to say. Any of this. I think the moment you take this onto a big app and people can access it in Minneapolis or wherever, it loses a lot of its context, we're actually visiting the multiple copies, going to the QR, scanning where it actually is. There's a lot of value that's been added to the physical location when you do it like that, versus it kind of being a once-off gimmick, possibly. There's more money in that, let's be real, but I think adding value propositions to the actual cultural heritage sites is crucial for this to be of value, essentially.
Any other questions?
I'm just interested as far as VR. Was it like, if you look at it, is it like a 360 kind of view, or it's more interactive where you can just get in there and?
Oh, we can play a video now, but that's essentially what it looks like on the right there. So it's an interactive VR representation, and I built it all from scratch on Blender at that time because there weren't any AI 3D modeling tools yet, which would now simplify that process actually. With videos and text and actual audio as directly told from the people we interviewed. So we are essentially building the spaces as described by the people we interviewed. But there's a video we can play afterwards to show you what it actually looks like. And I can show it to you here.
Any further questions? All right, cool. Well,
Cool.
Thank you so much.
Thanks.
All right. Okay. Now this is the best part of the show. Best but not last. Open sessions. Anybody who's working on anything cool within the immersive space. Right now, I think when it comes to 360 videos, funny enough, Dale was looking for a connector for his camera, and he actually saw the anti-gravity drone. So for anybody who's actually interested, anti-gravity drone, first 360 drone that you can actually just fly without any attachments or lights. So that's just something interesting, seeing as to what plays out in the space. That'll be quite cool. So you can actually reduce the amount of workflow that you have in that. But anybody, it doesn't have to be VR, it doesn't have to be AR, it can even be AI. People might be working with Pro Code, could be working with co-work. Put up your hands and often we can bring you to the stage. Anybody? I'm going to point to co-hosts.
Yeah. All right.
Yeah?
All right.
Yeah, give them a round of applause, Dale.
Please don't be shy, guys. Please don't be shy. Don't make me be the only one doing this. Okay, so there's one thing that I wanted to talk about. I mean, I guess for the last couple of, like the last month, I think, I've been working on this. And I'm very excited to share it with you. I'm very excited to announce it today. We are VR has a brand new website. So we've tried to like archive and catalog all of the old sessions that we had. Like, I mean, so many like bugs and glitches and things on fire. But like we managed to get lots, like I think it was 82 gigabytes of photos and videos from the like 7 years that we've been doing this. So there's lots of stuff you can find out on the new website. It's www.wearevrjozi.org. I'll share the link or put it on whatever. Please check it out. Part of that is, I mean, one of the reasons we wanted to do that is absolutely to showcase people's work, because that's what this is all about. But in order to grow, in order to like keep this thing going and give you guys free shots and, you know, get cool sponsors in and get cool gear, in order for us to scale up, we need a bit of money. And I've always been against it. It's never been about money for me. But what I've realized over the years doing this is that with some money we can make this thing into, you know, we can grow. I mean, we've already grown to, what is it, like 50 people here? We can grow and grow and grow. So what it requires is a little bit of money. And I've thrown thousands into this thing. And you know, it's helped my career, but you know, the idea is that we all pitch in and we all contribute. And instead of like coming with hands out saying, oh guys, please give us money, and then you never know what's going to happen with it, we're doing this merch stuff. It took me 7 years to realize that merch was a thing. But cool shirts, I figured like, what would I spend money on? I'll buy a cool cap, I'll buy a cool shirt. There's hoodies as well. So have a look on the website right at the bottom. there's like a little link there. We've got like a little fundraiser going. Buy a shirt, chip in, and who knows? I think this could be like a really banger year for us. So I just wanted to share that, and thank you again. 7 years of good times. We're going to keep it going, even if you don't buy a shirt. We're going to carry on going. So it's do what you want. But yeah, I just wanted to share that. So thank you very much.
Yeah, I know Dale, he's quite shy when it comes to being on the mic. But is there anybody going once, going twice? Oh yes, please. Introduce yourself and go ahead with what you're actually working with.
I don't know why this is happening. Hi everyone, my name is Liz. This is my first time coming here.
Hey.
I would have happily sat in my little quiet corner and spoken to a few of you one-on-one afterwards. But I figured I'd take the opportunity because I do need to be connected to people and meet people in the space. So I recently was part of the Electric South New Dimensions Lab. We just had our lab in December, and a couple of you might even remember my pitch at the end of the week. I'm sorry to tell you, I still don't have an elevator pitch like that one line, but we're getting there. It's just a very layered project, and it overlaps with research I'm doing towards PhD applications, so I'm kind of just in a universe. But my project is called Lala Limpopo Land, and it's basically, it's a 360 VR short film that is going to be experimenting with stop motion animation. So my background is in experimental animation, mixed media, video, and installation. And I really took my time with VR, sort of being skeptical, but finally decided to make the jump. And with Electric South kind of being tailor-made to different artists of different backgrounds and bringing us in ways that make sense for us, it's been sort of the perfect vehicle to make that jump. But I'm still realizing, okay, I'm trying to play around with something that isn't super common. So I definitely am so curious and have my ears and eyes always open when I hear about editing techniques and even just using After Effects, and then obviously heritage and XR. But so my family is from Limpopo. I have s5e heritage, and for about 9 years now, I've been making different kinds of mixed media work, installation, different kinds of research-based practice around s5e culture, but not so broadly, more around material culture, performance histories, performance practice, and how much we can read even into the evolution of a skirt. And now it's kind of reached another level where I'm trying to sort of feed back in the missing or lesser known histories of mineral extraction, which would be platinum mining out in that region. So a lot of sort of personal and collective histories with mining, with missionaries, and so I'm doing a lot of gathering archival material and footage from those archives, so like missionary documentarians, even prospectors and the mining companies that were first formed, because those are sort of the places where you will find the earliest images of our people. And so not within our communities, right? A lot of that lives within the memory. And so I have started building this world and working towards building this experience that really plays on the subtlety of perception and warps reality iteratively. And so, yeah, I'm kind of trying to do the bulk of it with stop motion so that I can really feed in a lot of the textures and materiality and stuff that I'm used to working with anyway in experimental animation. So yeah, so like real real life imagery and working with charcoals and paints and cut paper, and then also digital layering and all of that stuff. So yeah, currently we have to submit our final proposals for funding for our projects next month. But besides that and other grants I'm applying for, I'm kind of already full speed ahead, getting into residencies so that I can animate, because it's going to take a lot, and there's a lot of little components involved in that, but I'm wanting to experiment with sort of shooting stop motion in 360 and what editing looks like. And yeah, also just, yeah, interested in picking a lot of people's brains and getting as much knowledge, also just around budgets and timelines and what to expect with that. And so I just thought I'd share that I'm a newbie, but you'll be seeing me around.
Well, thank you so much, Liz. So, anybody else? Oh yeah, we've got the man at the back. Clap for him. There we go.
Hey guys, good to see a lot of familiar faces. Special shout out to the Habitat team, Green, Kelly, Gareth, Jamie, and Habitat alum, Lebo. Yay, good to see you. Does everybody know what Habitat is, or should I give a little intro? Little intro? Cool. Habitat XR is an impact-related immersive experiences studio. We're a conservation organization that looks like a production studio. We've been around for about 12 years now. We're down the road in Parkhurst. We've got a team of about between 12 and 15 people full-time across 3D, cinematic, production, which is Jamie and her team, and development, app development. Yeah, we create work specifically in support of NGOs that are on the front lines of conservation. We help them kind of collapse the gap between the context of their work in the field and the people who are either funding them, or the communities that they're working with, or the consumers that are buying these for nature products. So we're very, very specifically rooted in nature and environmental education. We've also got a non-profit arm called the Habitat Nature Parks Foundation, and we are in the process of building the world's first ever captivity-free zoo down the road, called the Future Zoo. Thank you, thank you. I thought I would just mention, you guys might have seen, those of you on the We Are VR WhatsApp group, that we've been quite active in crowdfunding lately. We've been using a platform called Artisan. It's been quite good for the non-profit project, and we have this season that has literally just started, opened a fund for other creators. We'd really love to invite all of you guys and all of your friends and your colleagues to think about submitting a project into our $50,000 fund, which I have it on good authority is going to be boosted soon to an $80,000 fund. So the pot is increasing, and the only requirements are that it uses immersive technologies and it is used in support of nature, environmental education, or human-nature connection in some way. Very, very loose definitions. I mean, Liz, your project might even apply for that. The mineral extraction stuff, think about it, come chat to us maybe. But yeah, we really want to recruit people to the project because we know how hard funding is. Immersive is very difficult in this country. Every aspect of it is difficult. The Africa XR report is like testament. You read that thing and it's like everyone is struggling with the same stuff. That's why the fund exists. But obviously in our lens of the world, we think that immersive technologies are very, very underrepresented as a tool in the regeneration movement, the conservation movement, the human nature culture reconnection movement. So yeah, that's our lens. And then also, Habitat XR is hiring predominantly Unity developers and or Swift developers, but also producers, Unreal Engine world builders, and feel like there's another one, 3D, what? Second? Oh, no, CO, no. I should introduce myself as the guy who people pays out of shots. That's my actual job role. Yeah, the Habitat Nature Parks Foundation, we're hiring for a CEO for the non-profits as well, which is very exciting. Means I don't have to moonlight anymore. So if you know anyone working in environmental education or non-profits or museums and exhibits, there is a link on our LinkedIn. So please follow that. And then come talk to any of the Habitat staff. if you guys are curious, if you guys have crazy skills in some area, we probably have a place for you. We'll find something. So let's keep chatting. Thank you.
Okay, well, thank you so much. We were not even expecting such a huge crowd for.
Short.
No. Yeah, that's all. No, thank you.
My name is Lulu Berger. I am the digital learning coach at St. Stithians Boys College. So I'm the education person. We play with VR at Boys College. At the moment, I'm exploring an app called the Light X Edu, which allows my boys to build immersive experiences and then go into VR and move through it without much code because they're young. Some of them are very, very good actually. So the environmental heritage thing really speaks to me and to my geography and history department. So we have the environment for these things to grow and to be explored by students. So I would really like that to happen, some sort of that. Last year I ran a project because we've got a very big campus, and I ran a project called Roots to Restoration, and I got the grade 9s to do a hackathon on how can we use tech to solve problems on our campus. Water, grasslands, birds, we have so many bin chickens that you know, they come and eat all the rubbish. How can we get the natural birding back again? So that would be very interesting, and that's what I'm asking is, if you are involved in education, I'd like to speak to you afterwards.
Okay. Seems people have become less shy. Is there anybody else that hasn't going once, going twice? Okay, well, we're calling it a close. But thank you so much for actually joining us. Thank you for being such great volunteers, for everybody who actually even took time out of a Thursday, the last Thursday. We're trying to commit to even having it every last Thursday, even with recordings as well. We're currently just even using a 360 camera to experiment as to how we can actually archive the footage that we've got within the space. But thank you so much to everybody, and thanks again to our lovely founder, Dale Deacon. And thank you to even Mix as well. And thank you to all of you tonight. And have a great one. And Tando, where's you? Thank you to our lovely DJ who will continue for the rest of the evening.
It's cash pass.